I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
It makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
It's like a Sharknado, except with poop.
Waldorf Nation. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's, what is it, Tuesday? It's Tuesday. I'm having one of those days. So I'm going to get through this show. I feel like garbage. The news is kind of garbage. So we've got garbage plus garbage equals more garbage. So it's going to be fun. We're gonna have a fun day. And then after this, I'm going to kill myself. But not literally, but I've got to go like shovel the driveway because it's awful outside. So yeah. So I'm not looking forward to that. So not fun. Not fun. All right. Anyway, so anyway, what we're gonna do? We're gonna talk about the story that that I've been trying to get to for the last couple of days. It's a good story. I mean, it's kind of good. And then, you know, all that stuff. And then we also have, like, bad news. Because this show basically runs on bad news. You know how the world runs on Dunkin'? Well, we run on bad news and coffee. And sometimes just bad coffee. All right, so we've got that. We're going to talk about how Chuck Schumer is calling it a victory, even though he absolutely lost. It's a disaster. We've got Twitter goes after the MyPillow guy. That's fun. But also, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to talk about a little bit of specter censorship. So we'll talk about that. We've got Giuliani freaking out about the Dominion lawsuit. This is fun. And it appears that Donald Trump is having a hard time finding lawyers to work for him. I wonder why. So we're going to talk about that. The world runs on Duncan on Dave Rubin. Oh, yes, I love that. Oh, that's great. Thank you, Rev Roth over on Twitch. That's awesome. All right, anyway, before I get into the show, announcement on Thursday, 2 days from now, I will be welcoming Anna Kasparian to the show. She'll be here at least for the first half hour. So we're going to talk some stories, have a little fun. It'll be her first time on the show, so I'm going to go easy. We're going to go easy on her. That's what's going to happen. We're going to go easy on her. We're going to have a fun show, hopefully informative as well. So bringing her on the show, that should be fun. And then, you know, the other half of the show, of course, we'll do the normal thing. Should be a lot of fun here. All right, so that's the announcement. Good. Before we get into it, please like and share the stream. Very, very helpful that you do so. You know, super chats, bits, all that wonderful stuff. Should be fun times. So let's do it. All right. We have a little good news. It appears that President Joe Biden has been promising to expand something called the child tax credit. So now that's, hey, look, I'm going to explain why this is actually decent. And so it appears that senior Democratic lawmakers are actually looking to do this, but not like in the normal, because you know the problem with like tax credits, right? So you get the tax credit, you got to wait for the end of the year, and then you can refund it, and then it takes away from, you know, from how much taxes you owe at the end of the year. So it's kind of like useless, kind of like worthless. Well, it turns out this is not what they're planning to do, at least from what I've seen so far. It actually appears that they will be distributing this tax credit through direct stimulus checks to families. Well, now that's actually really interesting. So now this is according to officials that have spoken the condition of anonymity in order to share knowledge of this internal discussion, which, by the way, is only a discussion at this point. Nothing is set in stone. So there is still a possibility for Democrats to go back to the normal, you know, crappy tax credit version. But so far, this seems to be picking up some steam inside the Democratic Party, so that's good. So now under one draft of the plan being discussed, the IRS would actually be tasked with depositing checks worth $300 a month per child younger than 6, as well as $250 a month per child aged 6 to 17. So that would be $3,600 over the course of a year for younger children, $3,000 a year for older children. That's not bad. I mean, again, could the amounts be better? Could the amounts be bigger? Of course. Could it be better? As I said before, it could be better. But is it bad? Not necessarily. So, all right. So let me give you some details. This is from Jeff Stein, writing for the Washington Post. Quote, unlike stimulus checks, the Biden administration and Democratic lawmakers are hoping to make the child benefits permanent that would continue in future years, according to 3 senior Democratic officials. So it's not just it's not just pandemic relief. It's like, we're just going to start giving you money for having kids. And like, if you have a family, we're literally going to just give you cash. Oh, all right. Hey, why not? Fine. That sounds great, actually. Now, the current proposal only calls for the expanded benefit to be enacted for a year, after which Democrats hope the political pressure will force Congress to extend them. I'm not sure how viable that is of a strategy, but at least it's not like, oh, we're going to do it after 4 years, and then we're going to allow them. No, just do it now, and then maybe, yes, maybe it will catch on, maybe it will become a popular program. I don't see why it wouldn't be, because it will help, you know, millions of families. And so, hey, this actually, again, sounds like it'd be pretty decent. But of course, there's caveats as well. Now, the benefit would be phased out for affluent Americans. So means testing, because of course, you know, Democrats and means testing go together. They're like, you know, they're basically a pair. Whenever there's a program put forward by Democrats, there's always means testing. And so it's not going to be universal, which means, of course, with it are going to come the problems with a universal program, a targeted program, which makes it easier to shut down. And so, you know, that's always a problem, right? So now the precise income level is also not determined yet. But that said, I'm in favor of good things. I'm against bad things. And so, hey, this seems like a decent thing. Now, how much would it cost? About $120 billion a year. So now the Post frames it as being a costly program. I don't really think it's that costly, especially considering how much rich people have actually made during the pandemic. In fact, there was a recent analysis by the Americans for Tax Fairness in the Institute for Policy Studies. So they looked at Forbes data to determine the nation's 660 billionaires, and they found that those billionaires actually made a collective $1.1 trillion just over the past 10 months. Now, as a result, they could not only fully fund the $1,400 in direct checks to regular people, right, as well as the $400 a week supplement for unemployment benefits, but also the analysis says that the $1.1 trillion gain in wealth could actually pay out $3,400 stimulus check for every one of the roughly 331 million people in the United States, or more than 13 grand for a family of 4. So they made billions and billions of dollars, and that money, actually $1 trillion, that money could go and pay for this, as well as pay for $3,000 a month stimulus checks. So, or I'm sorry, not a month, but over $3,000 stimulus checks. Awesome. Great. So now the report names a number of tech CEOs, for example, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and how much money they got. And, it also says that these billionaires could easily pay for this and still be fabulously wealthy. It also points out how most regular people have struggled. In fact, 1 in 5 renters and 1 in 10 homeowners reported being behind in their monthly housing payments in December. And of course, you have the pandemic that continues, and it's not going to be over for quite some time. So there's all that. There's all that. And so as far as the cost, we can absolutely afford it. But now the framing is never that. We never see that kind of framing on cable news, unfortunately. They also never frame tax cuts for the rich, as well as increased military spending, as too costly. But hey, you get a program where you can actually give families money for the children that they have in order to help them avoid poverty. Well, I mean that's of course considered costly. Ooh, yes. Why is there no means testing for billionaires? That is an excellent question. And now, I spoke about child poverty. So how much of an impact will this have on child poverty? Turns out, huge. According to researchers at Columbia University, this could curb child poverty in the United States by more than 50%, about 54%. Now, if you have the option to spend $120 billion and wipe out half of all child poverty in this country, why would you not do it? What kind of monster, what kind of sociopath do you have to be to not support something like this? Well, I got the answer for you. You'd have to be a Republican. But here's the thing. We could have always done this. We've got the money, but we spend it wrong. We give billions of dollars in oil subsidies to the richest corporations on the planet. Again, we give massive tax cuts, $1.5 trillion. The Republicans in 2017 gave to the rich, of which, again, a vast majority of went to the top 1%. And so, yes, we could absolutely afford this. So why not? Why don't we not give the money to kids in need? And by the way, I'm glad that it's not in tax credits. It's a literal direct cash payment. That's good. Meaning that, Democrats might have actually learned that people like cash. Who knew? Who knew? Right? In fact, under the plan, the IRS would send the payments automatically to American families, basically the same way they sent the $1,200 checks, as well as the $600 checks. The approach would not require taxpayers to wait till they file their taxes. Families would receive the monthly benefit, even if they owe the government more in taxes than the value of the credit, so they'd still get the money. So it's almost universal. It is so, so close. But hey, you know what? I'll take it. And of course, the reason that I argue for universal, because it's much more difficult to get rid of it if it's a benefit that everyone gets. That's one reason, of course, why Medicare for All would be the perfect way to do healthcare in America, universal program, as well as universal child care. It's just much more difficult to lobby to get rid of when everybody benefits from it, and when everybody benefits from these programs. Well, these programs become incredibly popular, very entrenched. Why do you think we haven't got rid of Medicare yet? Despite Republicans trying for over 50 years to try to get rid of the Medicare program. It's got to be universal. It's got to be universal. Now, one senior Democratic aide involved in drafting legislation said this, quote, This will have a more collective buy-in if a broader swath of the population directly receives this payment. I know, who would have known? Who would have known? Except all of us. Now, the lawmakers are also exploring whether the Treasury can set up an online portal for parents to manage the dispersal, giving people an option. Okay, do you want the tax credit or do you want the direct payments? Your choice. Okay, whatever. Now, aides also cautioned, though, that it might take time for Treasury to set up the site that could handle the requests. Other Democrats do worry about how the IRS might not have the capacity to disperse the payments efficiently. And you know, I could see that. Republicans have done an excellent job at breaking down government. And so, yeah, I could see a situation where they're struggling to keep up. And that's something that we've got to do, right? Maybe, I don't know, the Biden administration should hire some people to maybe increase the size of government. I know, right? Now, Biden is expected to include the child benefit in the new stimulus proposal. So again, it's good. Do I want to see more? Of course, but it's good, and I'll take it. It's based. And here's the thing: I don't have kids, and I'm not going to benefit myself, right? But as a society, yes, we are going to benefit. Cutting child poverty in half, that's huge. Who would be against that? Oh, right, I answered that question earlier. Republicans. Republicans hate the idea. Now, some Republicans have said, well, we should increase the child tax credit a little bit, but this might be a little too much. Now, Richard Neal is, interestingly enough, involved in this. Now, I'm not a fan of Richard Neal. He's a corporate Democrat, but in this, you know, he actually has been spearheading this. He's been writing this, as well as Sherrod Brown, Michael Bennett. And so, again, you know I have my issues with establishment Democrats, but if they actually do get this done, think about the precedent it's going to set. Now you're sending families a monthly check just for having a family, having kids. Just by virtue of having a family. What do you think that's going to lead to? Oh, that's going to lead to an acceptance of a UBI program. That's what's going to happen. And so that's a good thing. Now, there are caveats, of course, and that's, of course, how you get this passed. Biden, again, is pushing this in the stimulus measure, which means you would have to do either one of two things. You'd have to get some Republicans to sign on or face a filibuster, or do it through budget reconciliation, which you've got to get it through, of course, Joe Manchin. So that's a problem. Not only that, but it's only a $1,400 stimulus as far as the payments are concerned with the broader package. And then, of course, there's the timing on this. Some people say that we'll not be able to get out the door until about March. And so, you know, there's some issues. And of course, since this is just a draft piece of legislation, it's not even in the bill yet. Okay? It could end up being changed. The benefit could end up being reduced. It could be left out of the final bill. And so there's all of that. And again, Republicans are saying we're not at all in favor of this. In fact, we're giving too much assistance to people who are, quote unquote, not working. Really, you had no problem with that when you passed giant tax cuts for the rich who are also not working. And the Wall Street Journal editorial board has criticized this plans to expand the child tax credit, calling it a form of income redistribution, a special favor for some taxpayers that costs the Treasury a bundle. You could lift 5 million kids out of poverty today. And yet the ghouls over at the Wall Street Journal are like, no, we'd rather not. Thank you. No, we'd rather give tax cuts to the rich. So there's all that. All right. And so there are other potential ways of ruining it as well, like adding it to your tax liability, or would structure the monthly child benefit by deducting it from a family's existing tax liability, meaning that, of course, if you owe the IRS too much, or you would earn too much or owe the IRS too much to receive that check, because it must be used to offset the tax burden. And so there are those problems. Now, Matt Brunick says that approach would be a quote-unquote train wreck. Bruning also called for the payments to be made universal, as I keep arguing for these programs, because that makes sense. However, Democrats have called that a political non-starter, so there's that. So Bruning is right. Also, a person named J.W. Mason, that's an economist at John Jay College, CUNY, says this: if all this does is reduce your tax liability, there's much lower visibility. People won't see it as the federal government doing something new to help build your family. For this to build political constituency, people need to see that they're benefiting from it. Yes, 100%. So Democrats need to ignore their, and unfortunately, too many Democrats have this mindset still of we need to be, fiscally sound. We can't go big and bold because we need to be careful. We need to get Republican votes too, and so that means we can't spend it. We got to be targeted, like Suzanne Collins was talking about with the $1,400 stimulus. It needs to be targeted just a little bit more. We need to target. Democrats, you got to ignore that. Ignore the idiot Republicans and the Joe Manchins and the fiscal hawks of the party, and just go bold. Believe me, it actually will do a lot of good. It's a good idea, and it will be an amazing idea if we actually do it right. In fact, James Illiak, an economist who studies welfare policy at the University of Kentucky, noted this: the design of these things needs to be made transparent to the taxpayer and try to minimize any sense of confusion, which of course would make it more popular. If people understand how it works and it's simple, you just get the money and that's it. You don't have to do anything extra at tax time to try to offset it or anything like that. Then that's a political winner. People like simplicity. Now, Biden officials have not said how it will be structured or allocated, and the plan was very light on details, as I said before. So, look, again, all the caveats aside, I'm actually feeling a little positive of this idea. I know. Maybe I should temper my enthusiasm here, curb my enthusiasm, as you will, right? Because Democrats do know how to steal defeat from the jaws of victory. I'll get to that in another story. But at the same time, all right, it could, again, lead to, if it's done right, positive things when it comes to, for example, structuring a UBI payment. But I am afraid that Democrats, being Democrats, are going to be too sheepish, too afraid, too technocratic to actually try to go with the best, boldest action. And so that is the issue. Too many rules, too much means testing, unclear rules, that could break this whole thing down. And so it could be either be good or it could be self-sabotage. I like the idea, though. So let's do it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Democrats need a little encouragement, right? A little positive encouragement. So maybe call your reps, talk about this plan, and be like, hey, I support this child tax credit for families as a direct stimulus check. So let's do it. And hopefully, that will be enough to, get them, to show them that they have support and that it will help them stay in power. Because ultimately, yes, Democrats do like to serve their donors just like any politician, but they also need your votes. And this is a good way to get people's votes. All right. Moving on. So now we go where Democrats did kind of mess up. Both sides are declaring victory over the fate of the legislative filibuster in the Senate. So, look, in this story, I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds. So I'm going to be asking you to bear with me because this is important because we actually want to get things done in this country. So now first, Chuck Schumer is declaring that he had won with McConnell. Now, I've reported before about how Mitch McConnell and he's the loser of the Senate. He's the minority leader now. Chuck Schumer is the majority leader. But it's a 50-50 Senate, so they're tied. Kamala Harris is the tiebreaker vote, which ultimately, of course, hands the Senate over to Democrats. Now, in this situation, which doesn't happen often, I think the last time was in 2001, they tend to do something called a power sharing agreement, right? So now Schumer's been working with McConnell. He's been talking with McConnell about what kind of rules they're going to set in this power sharing agreement, how Democrats are going to run the committees, but they're going to be staffed equally with Republicans and Democrats. And I basically called it a recipe for gridlock. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, one way of getting over that gridlock would be to eliminate the legislative filibuster. So Mitch McConnell says absolutely not, no way. Whereas Chuck Schumer was actually like, you know what? No, I'm not going to make you any sort of guarantee that we're not going to get rid of the filibuster. Just let's do the power sharing agreement, because we're kind of forced into a corner to do so because of the makeup of the Senate. But I'm not going to guarantee that we're not going to blow up the filibuster, especially since we see how you've used it. So that's sort of the situation that we're in. So now Schumer recently was on, on Rachel Maddow's show, right? And he said, well, I hope Mitch McConnell drops this ridiculous filibuster demand. I think he's going to do the right thing. So, well, turns out that's kind of what happened. And so Schumer is delighted. He's like, yes, I won something. But wait a minute. Not quite. So here's where it gets a little into the weeds, right? So now first, Justin Goodman, who's a Schumer spokesperson, talked to Rachel Maddow. He said this, quote, "We're glad Senator McConnell threw in the towel and gave up in his ridiculous demand. We're looking forward to organizing the Senate under Democratic control and start getting big, bold things done for the American people." That's not going to happen because Mitch McConnell still has the filibuster. They're not getting rid of it. It's not going to happen under the Senate rules. So now Mitch McConnell was stopping Democrats from actually taking control of the Senate. So even though they lost, Mitch McConnell was saying, nope, I'm just not going to seat. I'm not going to seat anybody. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to hang everything up. I'm going to do obstruction, and that's it. Unless, of course, you promise to keep the filibuster, so I can basically obstruct everything that you do. Schumer, again, as I said no. Well, I don't want to keep the filibuster. I want to keep it open to blow it up. I'm not going to get the promise. I'm not going to give you that promise or anything like that. So now, I had to mention that was kind of uncharacteristically strong for Chuck Schumer not to back down. But then knowing Democrats and how they actually function, I had my suspicions that somehow they were going to screw it up or something is going to happen. And that Mitch McConnell ultimately will get what he wants. And that's exactly what happened. So now Mitch McConnell has officially said, well, I'm not seeking that, that promise from Schumer to, stop the legislative filibuster, keep the legislative filibuster, because I've already been guaranteed by Democrats, not Schumer, but other Democrats, that they're going to not vote in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. In fact, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, both Democrats, have affirmed their support for keeping the legislative filibuster, therefore handing Mitch McConnell all the power that he needs in order to obstruct. So now here's what McConnell said. Quote, today let me do my best McConnell voice. Today, 2 Democratic senators publicly confirmed that they will not vote to end the legislative filibuster. They agree with President Biden's, in my view, that no Senate majority should destroy the right of future minorities of both parties to help shape legislation. The legislative filibuster was a key part of the foundation beneath the Senate's last 50-50 power sharing agreement. In 2001, he continues, well, these assurances I look forward to moving ahead with a power sharing agreement modeled on that precedent. All right. So now, Joe Manchin, however, he comes out and he says, I do not support doing away with the filibuster under any condition. It is not who I am. Well, yeah, because you're basically a Republican. You're a Republican in blueface. And what you would do by allowing the filibuster to be nuked and allow a 51 vote threshold is, well, you would disempower Republicans from being able to obstruct. That's what you would do. Sinema's office also reiterated on Monday that she is still not supportive of nixing the filibuster. Quote, Sinema is against eliminating the filibuster, and she is not open to changing her mind about eliminating the filibuster, a spokesperson told the Washington Post. So, no nuclear option. Mitch McConnell gets everything that he wants, i.e. the filibuster, and so he's going to continue to obstruct everything. And that, I mean, he's got the tools. He's going to use them. Of course he's going to use them. So how the hell is this a win for Schumer? Where Schumer's out there going, oh, we won. Now we can actually do our job. We won. We get to actually take our seats that were being held hostage by Mitch McConnell, who refused to let us take over, even though we actually won. What a victory for Democrats. Holy crap, the bar is low. The bar is so low, it's under the floor. It really is. Wow. That's not a win. Mitch McConnell got everything he wanted. And again, to be fair, it's not Chuck Schumer. I don't know why he's taking a victory lap on this one, but it actually wasn't Chuck Schumer's fault. As I just said, it was Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. And so that's it. I mean, they sabotaged this. They helped Republicans. West Virginia, you had a chance to get rid of Joe Manchin. What did you do? There's a progressive, Paula Jean Swearengin. She was a wonderful, excellent progressive, a champion for water, for the environment, for jobs in West Virginia, but you didn't vote for her. You let this guy get back into power, and he just screwed the Democrats over. Arizona, there's another progressive, Deidre Booth, who ran against Kristen Sinema. She only got like 30% of the vote, less than. She was endorsed by Justice Democrats, People for Bernie, Progressive Democrats for America, a bunch of progressives and progressive groups. And yet, of course, she got blown out in Arizona and replaced by Sinema, who, again, just helped Mitch McConnell. She just helped Cocaine Mitch enact his agenda of complete obstruction for the next 4 years. Actually, I would say for the next 2 years, because it turns out Democrats are probably going to end up, because of obstruction, losing Senate seats or losing seats in the House. So there's going to be nothing that is done, okay? Nothing. This is why primaries matter. This is why primaries are so important. And this is why I get upset every time people are like, oh, I'm not going to vote in primaries, or people don't care enough to vote in primaries, because this is where the action happens. This is where all the races, all the legislation actually gets decided who wins the primary and goes on to win the general election. Ridiculous. And so now the only options they have are to, court Republicans who are going to be massively, of course, disincentivized to do anything. They're actually more incentivized into making Democrats fail. So they're not going to be able to do any sort of agenda that helps the American people. Or the other option, of course, is budget reconciliation. But for that to work, you need all Democrats on board, which includes Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. You see the problem? You see the problem here? So to call this a victory, like Rachel Maddow and Chuck Schumer and mainstream media are doing, it's disingenuous. It's just not true. It's all Republican, it's all right-wing framing. It's all this holding hands and kumbaya BS, in which there is none. There is none, okay? McConnell didn't fold. He got what he wanted. Let's just the way, just not in the way he expected, of course, but in the end, a win's a win and power's power. And so it's a win for him, and unfortunately, that means a loss for the American people. The idea that this is being spun as a historic victory would be a hilarious joke if it didn't mean that we would be seeing gridlock for the next at least 2 years, and then a Republican win in 2022. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong, but, you know, I'm usually, when it comes to this, I'm usually not. All right. Whew. Moving on here. Let's go to some fun stuff. Hey, I hope I'm wrong too. I'm just usually right about negative stuff. I'm like I had a friend that would call me the unicorn slayer because I was always cynical and on point, that I would quote unquote slaughter his unicorns. So there you go. All right, moving on. Fun stuff. Sort of. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes the MyPillow guy. Down goes MyPillow guy. All right, so it appears that Twitter has permanently suspended Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. So he's gone. Now, that of course proves once again that the free market works. I know. So now Lindell has been banned for breaking TOS by spreading election misinformation, which includes false claims of voter fraud, false claims of election rigging, all that stuff that's, again, has not been proven with any sort of shred of evidence. So now Twitter banned him using something called the civil integrity policy. So that's something that's just came out recently, earlier this month, in fact, and it states that users may not use its service for the purpose of manipulating or interfering in the elections or other civic processes. So that's Twitter saying, if you're going to lie about the election, then we're going to ban you. So now Twitter is a private company. It is allowed to do such things. So it is allowed to set its own terms of service, to which Mike Lindell, as well as the former president of the United States, and many other accounts, Lynn Wood, for example, have all broken. They've all broken that. They've all broken the TOS, and so they've been dumped from social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And now they're setting up on like Gab and Telegram and basically all the sites filled with neo-Nazis. So there's all that. Now it said that posting content that could repress participation or deceive people on the civic process would also be considered a violation. So again, if you're saying the election is rigged, that Hugo Chavez is stealing your votes, you got to do something, that would be a violation of the TOS. Okay, because it would repress participation and also would deceive people into taking actions they might not normally take if they're actually receiving like actual information. Like, I don't know, one of the things that could come from it is invading the Capitol building in order to disrupt an election certification, which was completely legit. I mean, I get it. There was real harm done here. Okay, 5 people died, including a police officer. So it's not like, you know, oh, tee-hee, I'm just talking out my butt because I don't like Biden and I like Donald Trump, whatever. No, this is stochastic terrorism. That's what it is. Oh, the Democrats are rigging the elections. They're going to come for your vote. They're stealing your votes, blah, blah, blah. They're the bad people. We should do something about it. I'm calling all patriots. Turns out that's a bannable offense. It is what it is. And look, I get why they're doing it, and they're well within their rights to do it as a private corporation. And another thing that private corporations are able to do is to sue people for defamation. And that's another thing that's happening. In fact, I talked about how Rudy Giuliani, I'm going to talk about it later, has been sued by Dominion Voting Systems for spreading election lies. So now Dominion has been threatening to sue everybody. Like they're in a litigation happy mood right now. And so they're going after Lindell. They're going after Giuliani. They're going after Sidney Powell. They're going after all these people with looking for $1.3 billion in damages. That's billion with a B. Damn. That's a lot. But unfortunately for them, I got to tell you that this is the free market at work. And the reason that I keep having to tell people that it's not a freedom of speech issue technically, it is a free market issue because these companies are private, etc., is twofold. Again, we've got to understand why we're here in this moment and why these things are happening. And also why these companies maybe shouldn't have this much power. I mean, look, I love seeing this, to be honest with you. I think it's cathartic to see grifters getting booted off private platforms. I mean, I like to see the ban hammer. It's fun. It's fun to see someone swinging it. To see Twitter swinging it with such gusto against disgusting people. But at the same time, I do get worried that these companies are gatekeepers. They're a little large, which is why we have antitrust laws. And the effect of this could end up chilling speech, political speech. So again, I want to be clear, not a First Amendment issue. You do not have free speech on these platforms. At the same time, though, these tech companies are too big. I think they do need to be reined in. I think they do need to be broken up. I think we need to have some antitrust actions on Facebook and Twitter. So there's that, okay? And look, I also think that, and maybe you might disagree with this idea, but I would say like an open source, open government platform to get introduced alongside with these private platforms where you are guaranteed free speech. Now that doesn't necessarily mean threats or anything like that, but like if you want to say things that might not be kosher for TOS on Twitter or these private platforms, then you'll be able to say it without getting shut down by the government. And so that's something to think about. Okay, because I understand, like, I've been demonetized by YouTube and Facebook. I get demonetized every day by Facebook. I know, right? I've also had friends get videos pulled down. The recent dust up with the Surfs, for example, the Surfs had their entire channel nuked and then brought back over like a misunderstanding. And then they had a video that was completely pulled down. They got a strike on it, a community strike, just for doing like a documentary on the things that right-wingers have said that led up to the January 6th Capitol insurrection. And he's just covering it for journalistic purposes and was not an endorsement of it. That was still pulled down. So that's a problem, okay, that we do have on these platforms. It is concerning how, yes, in their efforts, and I think they are good faith efforts to combat misinformation and to make the platform a little bit safer online. And to not propagate these, conspiracy theories. I think that sometimes they can also be a little bit too heavy-handed, especially to independent journalists who talk about this stuff. So it is important to have some nuance here, and especially for people who are addressing these narratives and actually pushing back against them, and pushing back against misinformation. So again, it's a nuanced discussion. And I think it's something that really needs to be had. As far as Lindell goes, I'm pretty sure I covered why he got nuked, as well as pushing back in the power these companies have. And again, it's a conversation we need to have on the left, but needs to be done in a nuanced way. We need to stop the bad actors and have the tools to have the bad actors, but also not go after the people who disseminate true information. And call out the bad actors. And so there's all of that. And to be able to allow people to do it outside of mainstream sources. That's really all I'm arguing for. All right. Now we're going to get a little bit more, a little bit lighter. Talk about Rudy Giuliani. Oops. All right. Why is he always sweaty? What? Like in almost every picture online, He's always like sweaty. Always. It's amazing. He's a human sweat machine. I know it's a completely ridiculous point, but why is he's like perpetually melting. He's like a melted candle. It's amazing. All right, anyway. Again. Not sweat, it's grease. Oh, that's gross. Ugh. Ugh. All right, yeah.
I have not loved this conversation.
Let's move on. Okay. Rudy Giuliani has responded to the $1.3 billion defamation suit filed against him by Dominion Voting Systems. So his response is kind of hilarious. All right, so now let me give you some background detail before I get into that. So Dominion sued Giuliani and Trump for continuing to spread baseless conspiracy theories about the election, about Hugo Chavez, the ghost of Hugo Chavez. Like they own Dominion. Venezuela created Dominion. It's a Venezuelan company, and they're using it to cheat in the 2020 election or something like that. So none of that, of course, is true. Dominion Voting Systems is a Canadian company and has an office in Colorado. Not Venezuelan. No ghost of Hugo Chavez. Okay. No, it's just, again, baseless conspiracies. All right. So now, of course, Republicans don't seem to care about anything other than confirmation bias, so they're not going to look into the facts. They're going to eat all this up with a big old spoon of copium. All right. And eventually even try to ransack the Capitol and try to, in order to stop, certification of the election results based on these conspiracies. We've seen that. All right. So now all of the lawsuits filed by Giuliani, by the way, on this, and other members of Trump's team have come up largely losers, right? So they're losing. They're not winning here. There's no winning here. A total epic fail. 60-something lawsuits, one win, technicality that tossed a couple of hundred votes based on like a postmarking, right? And so no evidence of actual fraud. So now that's interesting because when you go into what was actually presented at the lawsuits was basically a lot of hearsay, a lot of innuendo, and also they didn't bring some of the most crazy claims up because if they had, they'd actually be making false statements in front of a judge. Turns out that's illegal. That's perjury. You can get prison time for that, right? And since they had no actual evidence of their claims, as well as the fact that there were numerous recounts that have showed no fraud and investigations, even by the Trump Justice Department at this, during the election, or I should say after the election, William Barr comes out and says, we didn't find any evidence of fraud. And believe me, we really wanted to, all right? We wanted to. They decided we can't bring this into court. We can't. And so now Dominion in its Monday filing, after all this is done, said that Giuliani's allegations have damaged the company's reputation, and this is why they're suing. So now you guys know that Hugo Chavez is not exactly popular here in the States, right? So that when you falsely allege that the entire nation of Venezuela, backed this company because this company is secretly Venezuelan, and then use that company to steal the election from you and its software, then that's going to cause a little bit of harm to your future prospects as a company. People will get death threats. Some real harm could come to the actual people working in these, in the buildings. Imagine if somebody got like their headquarters and tried to do violence there as a result of this. So you can do a lot of harm here, right? So now this lawsuit is about a couple of things. For one, it's there to mainly debunk the charges, right? So you debunk the charges by getting them proved, Giuliani proved wrong in court or having him settle out of court, which in some cases, in a lot of ways, could be an admission of guilt. So it's not necessarily about the money, even though the money is really kind of the $1.3 billion. They're never going to get that, even if they win the lawsuit. They never get even a quarter of it. But it's there to generate headlines and generate attention, right? And also, the money that is being that will probably be won if they win the lawsuit will just cover like the costs of possible lost business. So there's all that, right? Now here's the fun part. During Monday's edition of Giuliani's Chat with the Mayor program on WABC, Giuliani talked about this. Here's what he said, quote, just hold on for this one, all right? What do you think I am? Some kind of jackass? That's a quote. And of course, the answer to that is yes. Yes, we do, actually. We do think you're some kind of jackass. What a way to start. But it gets better. That's intended to frighten me. You want to frighten me? You want to scare me? Like you have some of these companies and stations that have gone ahead and kissed your you-know-what because they're afraid of you? It's so good. Now, notice he's taking shots at Fox News. And also Newsmax, by the way. For, airing that interview. It's a must-run segment that basically debunks all the charges that Giuliani had made. So now that's an interesting strategy going after Fox News. Let's see how that works out for him. He continues, well, I'll tell you, I'm a crazy guy. I really am. I'm just really crazy. You got the, so not only have you, so not only haven't you scared me, you've actually given me something that I couldn't get through the censorship that's been set up so nobody can see your machines. And he ends by saying, you got the wrong guy here. I think a couple of others you sued are the wrong people too. I just don't think they're able to be frightened. What are you talking about? What? Okay. Wow. So here's my read of this. I believe that this is an insanity plea. Public insanity plea. I mean, he says, I'm really crazy. I'm crazy. I'm just really crazy. Don't mess with me. You got the wrong guy. I'm really crazy. I didn't do it. I mean, look. So part of it is, I think, yes, he's saying he's crazy, but also doubling down on the crazy statements because he's painted himself into a corner, right? Because then if he admits that, well, I didn't really mean what I said, well, then that makes the case for Dominion right there. And they can say, aha, we knew you were lying. We knew you were defaming us. And so we should win that case. So what is he to do? Other than say, I'm crazy, I'm insane. I mean, again, the guy's lawyer is probably the worst, lawyer I've ever seen. But at the same time, he's a lawyer. And so, he's still going to double down on this. And as well as try to protect himself in whatever way possible. And I guess that would be apparently insanity. Now, speaking of trouble, right? So he's in trouble. He's actually possibly in more trouble outside of this lawsuit, according to Michael Weinstein, a former prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. Ah, yes. Giuliani may also be looking at charges related to tax or campaign finance violations, failing to register as a foreign lobbyist, or taking bribes from foreign officials. Of course, that's related to his dealings with both Trump and Ukraine. And guess who didn't get a pardon? Rudy Giuliani. That's right. Trump not only stiffed him on the $20K a day, for being his lawyer, but also stiffed him on a pardon. Ooh, oh, that sucks. Ooh, that's real sad.
I have not loved this conversation.
Yeah, super, super sad. He does not love this. He does not love this conversation. He does not love anything that is going on right now. Very, very sad. And he's over here just like,
give me a break.
No, you're not going to get one. You're not going to get one. In fact, let's see. Fun times again for Rudy. But hey, I did tell you, when Donald Trump goes down, and he did, and, he's looking at impeachment after the fact, I told you that Donald Trump's going to create this big black hole around him that's going to suck everyone else down around him into it. Well, it looks like most people got out a few got in, and Rudy Giuliani is about to be next to hit the event's horizon. So, not good times for Rudy. Sad, baby. He better hope he's not representing himself. He'd have the worst lawyer in New York City. Yep. A whirlpool. Whirlpools sound kind of nice, actually. All right. Anyway, we have one more story for y'all. Again, light stuff. Dealing with lawyers, so that's always fun. Let's do it. Giuliani is a fall guy. Oh, that's... Well, I mean, Donald Trump's used plenty of fall guys before. Remember Michael Cohen? Alcohol is why Rudy looks like a faucet. True. True. All right. Former President Donald Trump appears to be getting rejected a lot lately. Now, his most recent rejection is not actually his neighbors near Mar-a-Lago or, Palm Beach County or anything like that. It's actually lawyers who are set to represent him at his upcoming impeachment trial. In fact, CNN's Jeff Zeleny claimed the former president is still searching for legal representation, but has been getting brushed off by attorneys who want nothing to do with him. So now I'm going to show you a clip here from CNN. This is host Kate Boldon, White House correspondent, stating that the largest obstacle facing Trump in his search for reliable representation, notice how it's not Rudy Giuliani, is his record of stiffing people. Take a look.
Scrambling to put together his team ahead of the impeachment trial. CNN's Jeff Zeleny, he is joining me now because he has details on that. Jeff, is the former president struggling to find counsel?
Well, Katie's certainly asking a lot of lawyers, and many of them, as Manu was just saying there, are coming through the connection of Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina. That's why all eyes today are on Columbia, South Carolina, and other parts of the state looking for lawyers. There is a scramble underway, we are told, just 2 weeks before this impeachment trial begins. Now, we do know that the president has secured Butch Bowers. He is a longtime, well-respected lawyer in South Carolina. He's a former Bush administration Department of Justice Civil Division lawyer. He's represented really every Republican governor in South Carolina in recent years. If you're a Republican office holder in South Carolina, you get into some trouble, you call Butch Bowers. So that is what is happening here. And Lindsey Graham connected him to the former president, but he's also looking for other lawyers. We are hearing that and there certainly are some other people who are on the cusp of signing on, but Kate, there are also some questions over payment. Of course, the former president has a long history and record of not paying his bills, anything from lawyers to contractors to others. So there are some people from big firms who are saying, no, thank you. We are not going to sign on to this because there are some worries about, all the controversy that comes with this. But first and foremost, also paying the bill.
That is both sad and hilarious. All right. One of you made a comment here about, impeachment because it reminds them of fruit. And all I can think of is millions of impeaches for me. Millions of impeaches for free. That's going through my head right now, so that's fun. Did you not know, isn't this common knowledge that Donald Trump does not pay his people? That he doesn't pay his bills? Why is there even a lawyer named like Butch or whatever, right? Is that the guy's name? Butch? Yeah. Connected to, of course, Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham! Still being a suck-up. Even after all this time. Wow. Big shocker, right? I guess he's not quite over daddy. Not yet, anyway. Not yet. So he doesn't pay his lawyers. He doesn't pay his bills. He doesn't pay Rudy Giuliani. He stopped paying him at, $20,000 a day. What makes you think that he's going to pay you? Honestly. I mean, he's not going to do it with his own money, that's for sure. He might end up raising money, from his gullible donors, his fans, and then using some of that maybe for his defense and then pocketing the rest, because we know that's what he does because he's done it before. He's a scam artist. His impeachment defense fund, the first one, his election defense fund. Got that wrong. I made a correction here. Election defense fund, like, most of it went to the RNC before a dollar even saw that. It's ridiculous. Not only that, but he ran a fake university that defrauded students. He stole from his own charity. The Trump family cannot operate a charity in New York anymore because they're scam artists. And guess what? One of Donald Trump's last pardons had to do with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a scammer. He stole money from the Build a Wall project from Trump fans. He's also stiffed local governments. The Freedom Girls. Do you honestly believe, are you dumb enough to believe that he will actually pay you? Hell no. That's why the smart lawyers who would normally jump at the chance to be involved in such a high-profile case, I mean, come on. High-profile case, protecting a former president of the United States during a highly charged political impeachment trial? Due to a January 6th insurrection attempt on the Capitol? Holy crap, that's huge news. A lawyer involved would be like, yeah, win or lose, I jump in it because guess what? That's going to raise me and my law firm's profile. Even those lawyers are like, nope, no thanks. We're not interested because not only is Trump completely and utterly toxic, which I understand, like, lawyers do have to represent toxic people. But Trump is even more toxic, and they're really worried about the money. Like, we're not going to get paid for this. So, no, this is too rich for me, man. Too hot. Too hot. Pull out. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And so, I mean, that's what's going on. All right. That's what's going on. As far as Trump is concerned, he is going to need a good lawyer. The problem is, you're going to find one. And it's too bad for him, really, because it just turns out that his reputation has finally caught up to him. For that, I say, sad baby. That's it. That's all I got for y'all today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/Jeff Woolner. I'm going to try to start doing more, patron stuff for you all. Much appreciated how you actually helped the show. Much appreciated. Pull out after inciting insurrection. Y'all are never going to let me forget that. And it should probably end up on the soundboard. So there's that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Please, again, like and share. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to the Twitch followers, all the new ones that we've had in the last couple of days. Much appreciated. Thank you, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all later. We're going to raid into the Surfs. So all, go to the Surfs TV on Twitch and join me there. So see you all later.
Tolerate.
Wet ass P-word.
Masturbate all day long.
Please clap.
Don't you want to please me?
There's some whores in this house.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.